Now, this does not mean that we don't look at things that need to be handled, things that need to be dealt with. We have environmental issues and social justice issues, and we have issues in our own families and in our own lives. We want more of this and less of that. But we do not get it by complaining. And we do not get it, we do not change it by making it wrong. What we know from our spiritual truth is that it is done unto us not only as we believe, but it is done unto us as we speak. That we are forever and constantly narrating life into being. And when we narrate life, we have the opportunity to tell the story the way that we choose to tell the story. And the way in which we tell that story becomes that which is embedded in our consciousness, which then becomes that which is the mold that the universal law takes to shape into reality. Now, humanity has spent 100,000 years shaping reality out of fear, shaping reality out of separation, shaping reality out of otherness and scarcity and survival. And in all of that 100,000 years, over and over and over again, there have been moments, glimmers of awakening, where someone has said, it doesn't have to be like this. There is actually something different going on. There is a beauty to life, there is a presence of love, there is a divine reality, a spiritual truth that is vibrating through all of creation. And that as we see it and feel it and touch it, as we name it and claim it, we shift our focus and we tell a different story. And those new stories are the seeds of each and every religious and spiritual tradition, each and every indigenous culture that has felt its roots, each and every scientific and philosophical revelation. Every moment, each time someone has had an awakening, an awareness, an opportunity to tell a new story, to speak new words. And so this month, we are focusing on being the power of our words, to pay attention to the power of our words and to use them to shape reality, not in some wishful thinking way, but in some deep way that where spirituality and science have come together to teach us how true this is, that our words have the power to shape reality. And I don't mean our words in some cerebral left brain sort of way, just, oh, these words that I'm talking about, but the words that capture the story we're narrating. The words that capture the belief, the feeling, the images, and the ideas that we carry in our lives about what we think is going on, and about what we believe is true, and about how we see the world. So this whole month, we are focusing on being the power of the word. And we recognize that when we are able, when we recognize and are able to understand the power of our words, that we can begin to manifest miracles. And every faith tradition has shown us this. We can begin to manifest miracles. We can truly shape reality. Now, in the science of mind, we are in that long tradition of philosophical, scientific, and spiritual understanding about how to understand reality, how to understand our place in it, and how to participate in what's going on. We call it new thought. And as you know, there's nothing new about the science of mind. There's nothing new about metaphysics. We trace our lineage all the way back into the Hermetic teachings, the most ancient indigenous teachings on the planet. And yet there is something new about new thought. And it is the idea that we can have a new thought. And that in the having of a new thought, we have a new idea, a new image, a new sense about life. And that we use our words to capture that new thought and own it and own it as a possibility for a new reality. Sometimes it's challenging to do, isn't it? Sometimes it's challenging to hold on to a new thought because we get lots of evidence in support of all of our old thoughts, don't we? We get lots of evidence from the media, from the news, and from our own lives that our fear or our limited thinking is true because that's what we've played out in the past. But to create a new thought in a deliberate and intentional manner is to reshape reality. And the one thing that's new in the science of mind, those of you who have been in classes, you know you've already been taught some of this. You've already begun to learn it. You experience it every single time you go up there into the peace room and you spend time with a practitioner who is saying a prayer for you and your life. In the science of mind, we call it spiritual mind treatment. Spiritual mind treatment. A way to teach ourselves to manifest miracles, to heal ourselves physically, emotionally, mentally, and bring ourselves into an alignment with spiritual truth. A deep and profound spiritual technique. Spiritual mind treatment. And it's such a weird word that we often hide behind the word affirmative prayer. We think that that's a little bit easier to get a hold of and that people will understand it a little bit more. But it's not prayer in any way that we've ever learned prayer before. It has a reason for being called spiritual mind treatment. First, it's spiritual. It's not operating on the physical plane at all. It's not operating with energy. It's not operating with physicality. It is operating on the intangible absolute, dealing with the absolutes of life, the spiritual reality, the causal level, the as above part of reality in the Hermetic teaching, as above, so below. Spiritual because it is dealing with that which lies beyond the purely physical and mechanical understanding of reality. A spiritual mind treatment. Mind because we are capable of understanding and using the knowledge through our own consciousness and awareness. We are actually capable of understanding and using the creative process because we are part of it. And we are that creative process awakening to itself. And we can, in fact, understand and use it, just like we can understand the laws of physics. And we begin to understand the laws of quantum physics. We can understand the spiritual reality, and we can apply through our conscious awareness. And I personally love the word treatment. I know it's really weird for a lot of people when they're first new in metaphysics and the science of mind, spiritual mind treatment. What the heck is that? Well, I think of it as treatment. It's a treatment for your consciousness like you take an aspirin for your headache. Right? It's a treatment for your consciousness. It is a way of treating your consciousness in the same way that you take vitamin C to boost your immune system. So we are deliberately inducing something into our consciousness which we know will shift it, realign it, bring it into wholeness. Just as we do treatments on our physical bodies. We do energetic treatment. We do treatment with our supplements, with allopathic medicine, right? We treat our physicality. And so we also treat our consciousness in the same way. It is a treatment that we give to ourselves as if we'd gone to our medicine cabinet because we had a stomachache. Spiritual mind treatment. And so when we engage in spiritual mind treatment, we are actually paying attention to the power of our words. Not only are we paying attention to it, but we're using the power of our words in a deliberate and conscious manner. And we can learn how to do it. We can learn how to do it. It is not rocket science. Now, these are some of the things that I think is the most fascinating when you think about the teachings of Jesus and you think about the teachings of metaphysics and you think about the teachings of the science of mind. Do you know that all of this stuff used to be what was taught in the mystery schools? We are teaching out here in public and on Facebook what used to be hidden in the mystery schools because it was considered both dangerous and causing us to be a little too close to the gods. So it was hidden in the mystery schools. But actually, we can learn how to do it. These are exactly and precisely the things that are taught there. We can understand and use this process. So, Centers for Spiritual Living has recently redefined, and I don't want to say that, has recently relanguaged the principles and practices that we teach in Science of Mind. I was very involved in it. It was really great. We're going to start putting it out so that you get it as well. So the next few pieces of information come directly from Centers for Spiritual Living. Now, when I went to ministerial school, I had a fabulous ministerial teacher, Reverend Glenn Wood. And oh man, did the things that he made us do with the Science of Mind textbook. But one of the things that I had to do as one of my projects for one of my classes is I had to comb through the entire book, all 574 pages of it, and find every definition or description of spiritual mind treatment that was in that book. And then I had to correlate the definitions and the ways in which Ernest Holmes elucidated what a spiritual mind treatment is and what it's for, what it's about. I still have that notebook. Yeah. So this is a synopsis of that kind of work that was done by a number of people thinking about, okay, what is this thing that we teach called the spiritual mind treatment? It is truly the cornerstone of the practices that we teach in the Science of Mind. Spiritual mind treatment is a specific methodology that puts all of our principles into practice in a systematic and intentional manner. It is designed to induce our ability to work with all of our principles. Through spiritual mind treatment, we consciously use the creative process to direct spiritual laws to heal and change real-life conditions, which automatically assumes that there is such a thing as a creative process, that there are spiritual laws that we can understand, and that we might also say, and that we may direct and heal our lives. Do you see the underlying fundamental implication of that? It is not God's will. It is the marriage of God's will as my will, as your will, as our will, that we can, in fact, use the spiritual laws to heal and change our life conditions. And that spiritual mind treatment, regularly used and applied in every area of life, develops a deeper awareness, expanded consciousness, and a greater experience of the one infinite reality. So I will make a confession to you. I have been in the ministry for 35 years. I've been in the Science of Mind for over 40. And I will tell you that for me, my spiritual awakening has come from 40 years of practicing spiritual mind treatment. That my meditation practice has been in support of my spiritual mind treatment practice. And that it is in the deliberate use of my word, not just, again, an intellectual, cerebral idea of the word, but the spiritual word of truth. That it is in that process of using that every day, that everything that I know to be true about life has become cemented into what I know to be true about life. And so spiritual mind treatment isn't just for fixing something or healing something or building a new business or attracting a partner, any of those kinds of things, although we use it for all of those things. Spiritual mind treatment is in of itself a profound spiritual deepening. into the recognition and the realization of spiritual truth. And it moves us out of our sense of separation with not from each other, but our sense of separation from life itself. It moves us out of our sense of separation into our awareness of unity and wholeness. Spiritual mind treatment is an act, an art, and a science. It is an act because it is the conscious activity of thought. It is deliberate, conscious, focused activity that we are engaged in. It is an art in that there must be conviction, appreciation, and realization. It's not just rote words. It's not just saying the right words. It's not just having your spiritual mind treatment sound like the practitioner you had do a spiritual mind treatment for you last Sunday. It's not comparing our spiritual mind treatments to anybody else's spiritual mind treatments. It is an art in the way that we weave our conviction, appreciation, and realization together for ourselves. And it is a science in that it produces verifiable results through the application of impersonal, consistent spiritual laws. It is a science in that it produces verifiable results without the application of impersonal, consistent spiritual laws. But like any science, if we don't use it, it doesn't work. If we don't actually engage in spiritual mind treatment, if we don't actually use our most precious, fundamental, deepest, most profound spiritual tool, it will not work. It will not produce results in our life. It will not manifest miracles for us. We actually want to engage in it. Now, the biggest thing that I know about spiritual mind treatment, that when we first start using spiritual mind treatment, is that it's awkward. And it's weird. And it's different than anything that we ever learned before. And we feel like we don't know what we're doing. And that would be true. We don't. Right? Just like if Scott were to say, here, let me teach you how to play the piano, and we never sat in front of a piano, wouldn't we go, well, this is weird. You want me to do what? I have to hold my hands how? How am I supposed to memorize where all the notes are? How do I get from that writing of notes up there on the page to playing through my fingers? How do you get there? Practice, right? There's one way only, and that is to practice. And if we sit down at the piano and we play for 10 minutes or we play for 10 days and we go, oh, this really sucks, right? And then we walk away. Why? Because as adults, we've forgotten how to learn. We've forgotten how to be awkward. We want to do it like this perfectly. Well, I can't tell you how many people say to me, well, I don't treat like you, Petra. Well, if I wasn't very good at it, 40 years would be a wasted effort, wouldn't it? That would be bad. So I hope to God I'm good at it. Just as Scott, who's been playing the piano for I don't know how many years, is a whole lot better than somebody who's only been doing it for a year. And so so it is awkward, and it is something very different, but it is working us at so many levels. Do you see, when we do spiritual mind treatment, it is working us at so many levels. It is forcing us out of our false, small, limited identification with our humanity and forcing us into our identification as spiritual beings. Every step of a spiritual mind treatment is designed to create that shift. And the other thing I hear people say is, well, I don't do spiritual mind treatment because I don't believe it yet. Well, that is the whole point. That is supposed to be the end result of a spiritual mind treatment. That would be like saying, well, when I can play good enough to play at Carnegie Hall, then I'm going to learn how to play the piano. Right? So it is the process of going from I am out of alignment with my spiritual truth to I am living in alignment with my spiritual truth. And if we wait for that, do you see, then we'll never do our spiritual work. Spiritual mind treatment is built on two fundamental foundations. It is built on the power of the Word and the mysteries of the infinite. These are the two foundations on which spiritual mind treatment is built: the power of the Word and the mysteries of the infinite. So let's start with the power of the Word. You know, there is no ancient spiritual tradition that doesn't understand the power of naming something. The goddess traditions, the indigenous traditions of Europe, Africa, and the Americas were deeply, deeply understood the power of naming, and that one's name said something about us. That the name of something meant it had an identifiable, essential nature. And that when we name something, we are claiming our awareness of that essential nature. We talked about this morning in our Science of Mind class, didn't we? The essential nature of a tree, of treeness and flower. And not just in its generic sense, but in the more concrete sense of that essential nature is accessible to us. This is the very... It's all right. It's all right. I'm just seeing if there's something interesting coming out of the power of the Word. You never know. So when we think about in so many ancient traditions that had totems, right, or spirit guides, if in the shamanic tradition of the spirit guide, what do we get from our spirit guide but the medicine? And what is the medicine of the lion or the medicine of the mouse but its essential nature? And there is something that when we name it, and we recognize it, that we claim it for ourselves. We allow that nature to work us, and we incorporate it within us. Do you see? By the power of the Word, of knowing this essential nature, we can experience it for ourselves. We receive the medicine of the essential nature. Do you see? So when we name and claim aspects of the divine infinite reality, yes, of course, we can't possibly have a name that captures all of transcendent mystery. But when we say love, abundance, absolute wholeness, do you see, when we name it, we are receiving the medicine of that essential nature in exactly the same way. And we build a relationship with it that becomes real to us. So for me, one of the ways in which I really experience this is when people who go hiking with me, so now I don't know whether they think it's cute or it's annoying, but I'm walking around as I'm hiking, I'm like, oh my God, look, there's a little lily. Oh, that's a penstemon. Oh, look at that beautiful Sitka spruce. Oh my God. Because they're my friends. Do you see? I've hiked so long in so many places, and I've sought to understand and to build relationships with these beings around, that when I name them, I'm re-establishing my awareness, my relationship. I'm reacquainting myself with the medicine that is available there, that is there whether I'm here or not. Do you see? And in that process, I belong. I walk down a path in the middle of the wilderness, and I know I'm at home because I'm surrounded by my friends. Because my essence and that essence has built a relationship. And so this is why it becomes so important. The words that we use when we describe the nature of reality. What is the essential nature that we are recognizing, that we are imbibing the medicine of? The second thing about the power of the word is that it focuses attention and intention. So, I don't know about you, but when I first started meditating, I was not very good at it. When I first started meditating, I sat on my cushion. Okay, I'm sitting here, breathing. Breathing. Okay, I'm breathing in. I'm breathing. Am I supposed to be thinking about breathing? What am I supposed to be doing? I'm breathing. Oh, I'm not supposed to be thinking anything. Oh, right. Okay. I'm not supposed to be thinking. Stop thinking. Stop thinking. Oh, wait. Now I'm thinking about thinking. On and on and on it went. I will not belabor it. I'm sure you recognize it, right? And then I'm having the conversation with myself about all my to-do lists. Right, all the things, and then I'm all excited because my mind is finally quiet enough that new idea that's been percolating back there is finally time to come forward. So now I spend the next 5 minutes of my meditation thinking about that new idea instead of being quiet and silent, right? On and on and on and on. Okay, so yeah, so it's a good discipline. We meditate on Wednesdays and Sundays. You can join us. It's fabulous. But for the deliberate creation, manifesting miracles, to begin saying affirmations or visualizing or imagining what we want, and then to start thinking about our to-do list or start thinking about what's not working, do you see how that undermines the very thing we're seeking to focus on or to create? The power of the word, the reason that we use words in our spiritual mind treatment is because when you are describing something in such a way that you're engaged with it, you can't actually think about your to-do list, can you? It's as simple as that. Using our mental capacity to focus and to define and describe things actually keeps us engaged with the thing that we want to be engaged with, as opposed to all those other things we're actually trying to get away from, fix, or change. And so the power of the word keeps us from wandering, keeps us from worrying, keeps us from wondering, well, how's this going to work? Well, how's that going to happen? I don't really, blah, 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 right? It is the place that using the power of our word keeps us focused without the distraction, staying committed to dwelling on our spiritual truths and staying committed to our spiritual awareness. If it is nothing more than going back to, oneness. Oh, that's right, oneness. Well, oneness. Oh, I'm thinking about whatever. Oh, no, oneness. Do you see? It continually refocuses us. And finally, the power of the word builds our inner experience and the fire of it. Using words to develop the images and feelings in the imagination is what makes it real to us. Do you see? I think we confuse meditation and spiritual mind treatment. We think that in spiritual mind treatment we are to wait for inspiration. No, that's what we do in visioning. And we may do it in meditation. If we do that kind of meditation, we may contemplate an idea and be open to inspiration. Spiritual mind treatment is the directive practice. It is the time when we say, I have had an inspiration and I'm now seeking to narrate it into being in my life. And we use the words to capture the feelings and the sensations and to describe it to ourselves in such a way that it becomes real to us. And we all know the studies, right? Our brain doesn't know the difference between an imaginary or a real experience if our imaginary experience is that real to us. Do you see? So, again, we use the power of the words not in some rote manner, not just in a blah, 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 blah. God is all there is, and all there is God, and I'm one with God, and my life is abundant, and I'm so happy. Right? And then the back of our mind, we're going, yeah, whatever. But did you look at that and that and that in your life, right? Those are words. Those are words with a small w. Now, we're talking about word with a capital W, right? It is the descriptive word. It is the word that speaks of the essential nature of what we're talking about. Do you see? That captures and describes that in a way that we feel and sense and know. And we use those words until that feeling has been generated, until we are aware of the totality of that which we are imagining, and we begin to experience it as real. So for me, I do two things to really help with this in terms of the power of the word. The first thing is I use a lot of nature examples for myself. So for instance, when somebody comes to me and they are looking for a new job and they are seeking to really be employed in a way that serves them, that allows them to give their gift, oftentimes what comes to me as I'm speaking in the beginning of a spiritual mind treatment is an image from my childhood. We had rhododendron and azalea bushes all along the front of our house. Actually, the truth is every house in our neighborhood just about had it. And in the summer or the spring, when those things were blooming like you can't believe, they were humming with bees. Humming and buzzing with bees, and the bees were coming and getting the pollen, and sometimes we would have to wait for a bee to come out, and then we'd pluck the little azalea and we'd eat the end of it and get the honey out of it, right? Did you ever do that? Yummy, yummy. But it was like a hum. There was this hum, this activity, and I remember just being entranced by it. And I thought each one of those bees is doing what is theirs to do. There is an essential reality to the activity of life. And every aspect of life understands its part in it. Right? And so the bee is active and the flower is active, and they've come together in a beautiful creation to create honey for the hive. Well, that's what's true for the person that I'm doing spiritual mind treatment for, about them and their job. Do you see? It's the same feeling. It's the same essential nature. There is a flower waiting for their doingness, and those two things must come together as beautifully as the bees and the flowers came together and those azalea bushes in my childhood. And so I use things like that to build the awareness of what it is that I'm seeking, of the essential nature that I'm seeking to experience and express. I also love to use universal principles. So I have a number of universal principles that really speak to me when I'm trying to imagine how is it that life will be different when this spiritual mind treatment is over. My two favorite ones is Thomas Troward's statement, principle is not bound by precedent. Right, everything is new. Just because it was a failure last time doesn't mean it's going to be a failure this time. Just because it didn't work out or just because I don't know how to do it or whatever, principle is not bound by precedent. Every moment is new. The other one is Ernest Holmes's statement. He says, spirit is forever taking form and releasing the form that it has taken so it can take new form. So when I'm doing spiritual mind treatment about loss of a job, loss of a relationship, or simply the desire to have the courage to leave one thing, to move to another, this universal principle speaks to me. And I can imagine that deep and profound process of creativity that's happening all the time in the universe. And if it's happening in the universe, do you see it's happening in our lives as well? And by working with those words, I'm grabbing that essential nature, getting the medicine of it, so that it shapes the rest of the spiritual mind treatment. And of course, part of what we're seeking to get the essential nature of are the mysteries of the infinite. Because our spiritual mind treatment starts about the truth of infinite reality. It starts with the truth of life itself. To meditate on the infinite, absolute, ultimate reality, to express and experience these ideas about what is true about the transcendent reality, without reference to ourselves as individuals, Right? These are the important things that we experience in meditation and in our deep mystical practice. So I'm going to take a minute to plug my practical mysticism class. It comes up here, I think it's this week, starting this week. Practical mysticism class, we're going to talk about 7 ways in which we can, as individuals, in which we already do engage with and experience the mysteries of the infinite, of the absolute essential nature of reality. You can and do already experience it, because it is already part of who you are. Yes, my dear? It's on Tuesday. Thank you. It's on Tuesday. Okay, thank you. So it's coming up. So it's in the pulse. So we want to explore the qualities of this divine, absolute, infinite reality, and we want to work with them until we can extract the essential nature in such a way that it becomes real to us. Now, people often ask, well, what are the qualities of God? And if you've been in any classes, you know that there's no definitive list of universal principles, universal truths, or qualities and attributes of God. Why? Because we all use a different language. We all mean different things by different words. And in our spiritual mind treatments, you have to use the words that work for you, that have meaning and purpose in your life, that have juice for you. But sometimes it's nice to have a good place to start. And so the qualities of spirit, this is a list of 7 qualities of spirit that come from Thomas Troward. So I'm going to plug my other class, Thomas Troward class. One of my favorite classes, actually, I love both of these classes I'm teaching. The Thomas Troward class is an opportunity to really dive in, to give food to your left brain. Give food for your left brain so that it can catch up to what your right brain and your heart already know. So it's brilliant. So it's a brilliant material. Anyway, he has this is the best list of the qualities of spirit that I've ever heard. So I'm going to read it to you because I think it's amazing. The substantive properties of spirit. Thomas Troward. What is spirit? Well, to begin with, it must be life. It must be life, because it is the impulse of all creation. Then, therefore, because it is life, it must be love. Because as the undifferentiated principle of life, it cannot be otherwise. Then tend to the fuller development of life in each individual. And the pure motive of giving greater enjoyment of life is love. Then, because it is life, guided by love, it must be light. That is to say, the primary, all-inclusive perception of boundless manifestation yet to be. And then from this proceeds power, because there is no opposing force to the level of pure spirit. And therefore, life waged forward by love, or the desire for recognition, and by light on the pure perception of the law of infinite possibility, must necessarily produce power. For the simple reason that under these conditions, it could not stop short of action. For that would be the denial of life, love, and light, which it is. And then because of spirit is life, love, light, and power, it is also peace. Again, for the very simple reason that being the spirit of the whole, it cannot set one part in antagonism against another. For that would be to destroy the wholeness that it is. Next, spirit must be beauty, because on the same principle of wholeness, it must only proportion every part to every other part, and the due proportioning of all parts is beautiful. And lastly, the spirit must be joy, because working on these lines, it cannot do otherwise than find pleasure in the self-expression which its works afford it, and in the contemplation of the limitlessness of the creative process by which each stage of evolution is realized. It is still the stepping stone to something yet more excellent, this evolution, and so on in everlasting progression. Life, love, light, peace, power, beauty, joy. if we contemplate these qualities, these truths with the same level of intensity that we seek to know the essential nature of a spirit animal or a totem, do you see we begin to capture that essential nature? We begin to understand it, and we begin to imagine with our words that there is truth in all of this. This becomes the very ground from which our spiritual mind treatment arises. Spiritual mind treatment, the starting point is the recognition of this one infinite, universal, absolute reality. And the specific quality or principle, which is the causal reality that needs to be restored, that is now restored as we do our spiritual mind treatment. So we're going to talk about this all month. How do we start with a particular quality, a particular universal truth, a particular idea? Own it, claim it, name it, recognize that it exists, not only in life, but then in our own life. And we'll see how the steps of spiritual mind treatment build a deep and profound awakening in consciousness that changes everything. I like to think of this first step not only as recognition, but as remembering. That we are remembering what we all already know to be true about life itself. We spend time remembering the transcendent, infinite, universal creative power and intelligence, which is the truth of the universe. From this place, manifesting miracles is truly a reality. And so this is where we begin in our spiritual mind treatment, recognizing the essential nature of life itself. Owning it, claiming it with our words. Again, not just a blah, blah, blah word, but a word that really allows us to capture it. I cannot highly recommend this book enough that we're reading. She's going to talk about each of the steps of treatment, and then she's going to talk about the qualities, some of the qualities in the back. They're beautiful meditations on the qualities because we want to grasp the essential nature of it, not just the word of it. And so in closing, she says this: this recognition is not a recognition of something separate from ourselves or a petition to a far-off God who may or may not grant our request. Spiritual mind treatment is not a supplication to an external authoritarian deity who is moved by the anguished, beseeching prayers of his children or by their good deeds. It is not a prayer to anything at all. Rather, the first step is a recognition of one life, spirit as all in all, creator and creation. It is a recognition of the creative principle behind the eternal process of creation, even as it is within creation. It is a recognition of the divine intelligence that moves like a kaleidoscope with every thought, idea, and notion, and yet is beyond them all. It is a recognition of the pure substance and undifferentiated being that causes all to be. It is a recognition of the eternal life force continually creating moment to moment. It is a recognition of the presence that is everywhere, always. And so it is.